Hey, thank you for tuning in and thank you for such a warm response to my first video. Today I'd love to show you how I blend with coloured pencils these green leaves. This artwork and the artwork I'm using today for the demonstration is from this beautiful colouring book, Twilight Garden by Maria Trolle. So just like last time, I'm not going to be using really expensive pencils. I've got my Arteza Expert pencils, which are mid-range, and they're beautiful blenders. And I've got the darkest green that I have, which is jade green, and I've got a mid-green, which is moss green, and finally the brightest lime green, or even like a fluorescent green that you have. And that's for the highlights on the leaves. So I'm only using 3 greens in the leaves. I'll also be using periwinkle blue and peony pink for little highlights. So I'm going to start with this leaf here, and I've got my lime green, and I'm going to just put in the green colour very lightly. I'm using my circles technique, and I'm making sure that I'm going to leave quite a large area where I'm barely touching the paper, because I want the whiteness of the paper to show through. And I think it's something I always try and remember with this is to make sure that I don't lose that brightness of the paper by colouring over too much at this stage. I'm going to colour all of the leaf in this colour. Don't worry that it's quite a bright green, because it's only the first of 3 layers. There we go. I'm just fading it into that white area. Like that. I might put a bit more green under here because that's going to be a shadow. But don't worry too much about that at this stage. And I'm already ready to go on to the second green. And that's going to be this mid-green, and in the Artezas that's moss green. And with the moss green I'm going to start thinking about where the shadows might be, and on this leaf I think that it's probably going to be shaded a bit darker going down this sort of spine of the leaf there, down that main vein. And I'm probably going to be going in a more linear stroke. I'm still going to sort of scumble it into the into each side of the leaf there, and slowly building up that layer of colour. So then moving sort of towards the bottom of the leaf, I think it's going to be quite dark here. This is where the leaf's going behind this flower, so that's going to be a shadow, but we'll build that up even more with the next green. Pressing down a bit harder and going into more shadow. Now, one thing that I do want to show you here is this, what I call the halo effect. So it looks like the leaf's being hit with light just on the very edge, and it helps to create that 3D illusion. So that's by adding this line of green, leaving a gap there before you get to the edge. And then just lightly circling that round and round and round to blend that in. I'm going to continue that at the top. Like that. And then under here is going to be shaded as it's shadowed by that leaf there, by the petal, sorry. I'm going to not do the halo on this side, I don't think. I think I'm just going to go right to the edge. And then that's going to be a very dark edge there. And that helps to show that the light's coming from this direction. So I'll fade that in. You're already getting quite a lot of contrast from leaving that area very white. Now, another important thing I think when colouring the leaf is to think of not only how the leaf goes in the middle and at the edges, so that where it's raised it catches the light here, but also when you're looking at the contours, the artist has given us these lines that we can use to our advantage, because you've got also the contour of the leaf going the other way in between these lines, and so you can just tap into that by adding a little bit of shade going along that line, following that line, and that'll give you a little bit extra depth to your shading. And you can do that on both sides. You can even do it on the other edge there. And you don't have to do it on every edge. I mean, when the light hits a leaf, naturally, you know, each ridge of a leaf is going to be unique. And I think that makes the leaves very interesting to colour, and they don't have to be they're not all the same, and they're all sort of interacting with what's around them as well as each other. Now I think that's probably enough of that colour. I might add a little bit more shadow first though. Okay, so then going on to the darkest green, I've chosen this jade green. I'm really going to get into the contrast now and into the darkest shadows. So that's going to definitely be this centre of the leaf again. And this is also a more kind of a bluey green, which helps to give us more variance in those green shades, which I think always adds interest. So here's where we really have to decide which areas are probably going to be the darkest shadow, and use it sparingly to emphasise the contrast between the dark and the highlight. I'm going to go down this edge again. I'm going to emphasise some of these ridges. I don't want to overdo this colour. As I say, I want to keep the effect of it, but I do think that it's also nice to use it in some areas over what is actually quite a pale bit of the leaf, because then the texture of the paper will pick up this bluey green pigment, and it adds the natural kind of diversity of those green hues that you'd see in a leaf. Just emphasise that halo. And yes, let's not forget that shadow under there. Again, I'm still working fairly lightly, but building up the areas that I want to. And lastly, the bottom shadow here. Might darken that a little bit. I'm constantly looking at the whole leaf and evaluating it as a whole. It can be quite easy to get carried away and sort of lost in one area, but try and evaluate the whole. And what I'm going to do now is, I think on this leaf I'll use the pink to add a bit of interest. Leaves have other colours as well as green, and sort of that's to do with the lighting, I suppose, of the surroundings. It gives a bit more variation as well in between the individual leaves, because I think some of the leaves I'll probably do with a blue highlight. And yeah, I'm just doing it in one bit of the leaf really. Now I think that with this layering we've kind of lost a little bit of the brightest green that we had to start with, and so this is where I like to go back in with the lime green, for example, and then just use that to blend the colours that we have, and also to bring some of that vividness of the green back and really make the leaf bright and really vivid. And don't be afraid to go into that edge as well. So that's one leaf there. I hope you enjoyed my video. I hope it was helpful, and if you did like it, please do hit like. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and you can also follow me on Instagram at ColouringCrazyLucy.